So building the vision, there's a couple of things that your leadership team will need to ask themselves. So the first kind of most obvious one is, what business outcomes do you want these tools to enable? It might sound like an obvious question, but it's good to start to try and understand what is it you actually want this thing to do, and then you can start to ask, is it realistic that this can be done? How does it align with your strategic objectives in a longer term, 3 to 5 year, something like that, or maybe even longer term? Does AI align at all with your strategic objectives or not? So these again are some of the things you need to ask. What about your risk appetite for experimentation with these tools? Is that high? Is that low? Again, this is going to depend on the nature of your business and the nature of how you're going to use these tools. How will you measure the success of this using this new tool beyond just the cost savings that you have attained? So there's loads of different things that you want to measure, whether it is quality and quantity as well. And what ethical principles will guide your use of AI? So one of the things that we will cover is that we do have to be ethical, and we have to put that into our strategy, and we have to make sure that that's being governed properly as well. So that'll be in our governance framework, where we're going to have ethical principles that will guide our use of, when using these tools. And then finally, how will you communicate your AI strategy to stakeholders? Now, these questions aren't, it's not an exhaustive list. There's a lot of questions that you want to ask yourself, but these are the basic ones. So what do you want to get out of this? How does it align with your objectives? What's your risk appetite? And in terms of savings, what else are you going to measure in terms of the success of this tool, or the failure of the tool? What ethical principles will guide you? And then how are you going to communicate this strategy to your stakeholders? So there's some of the basic things you need to ask. And the best practice is to create an AI vision that connects to the organizational mission and values. That's normally, if you look around, you see different organizations' AI statements. Their vision is usually aligned with their organizational mission and values. So the first thing you got to do is you have to understand where you are in terms of your AI journey. So there are tools out there, and we'll share some links, with some tools that you can use for your own companies. But there are what's known as an AI maturity assessment. So essentially to see how mature is your organization when it comes to using these tools. So there are a couple of different stages. Break this down into just a few stages to try and keep it clear. So the first kind of stage is just exploration. And this is when individuals may be experimenting and there's no real formal strategy. So that's pretty much the first stage. Second stage then is more experimenting, and this is things like pilot projects, and where you're starting to see a governance framework emerging. Once your pilot projects, if successful, then you can start to define your strategy, and you can start to put your governance in place. Once the pilot projects are finished, you usually have some documentation as well that you can share with different teams or different departments across the organization, and you can start to standardize how employees can use these AI tools. Once you have that, then you can start to scale across the whole enterprise, and this is when you're starting to get to be quite mature. So this is long after the pilot phase. Everything's been documented, everything works, it's been tested properly, and then you can see that you're getting a return on your investment, so you're able to measure your success. And then once you do all of that, you can start thinking about scaling it out across maybe teams, departments, across the whole organization. And then finally, this is the kind of point that I suppose most organizations want to get to, and this is when you are what they call AI, when you have AI native operations. So when you have AI embedded within your business operations, and you're continuously improving those. So you're using these tools to actually transform how your business operations work. So that is the kind of the point that we all want to get to, but you can't really get there straight away. The first thing you got to do is assess where your current level is, and then define a target for about 1 to 2 years. And this is, like I say, there are tools online where you can just fill out a questionnaire, and they will help you to assess your AI maturity. And then from that you can go forward, and once you know the kind of state of your organization, where they are in terms of their AI adoption, then you can start to plan accordingly. So we'll look at some of the governance frameworks and some of the things that you're going to need if you are creating an AI governance framework. Some of the essential components are you'll need an AI ethics board or ethics committee, and this will be a cross-functional representation of every department within your organization. They must have clear mandate and authority and regular meetings as well. So the first things first is get an AI ethics committee together. The next thing then is develop policy and standards. So you want the very first, and the basic thing that you need is an acceptable use policy. This will be, your guidelines and basically inform your employees what they can and what they can't do when they're using these tools. You also want some policies around data handling, and you'll need some kind of way to assess the vendors of these different tools, because if you're not able to assess them, then you don't really know how your risk profile is. So risk management is a big one. So you obviously need to know what risks are involved, and you need to do impact assessments to make sure that you can mitigate from those risks, and then also develop some incident response procedures, for worst case scenario, and business continuity procedures as well for what happens if the worst case scenario happens. What happens if this tool goes completely offline? Is that going to, is your business dependent on that? And then of course oversight and monitoring. You need to constantly be monitoring the metrics of these tools to see are they performing correctly and they're performing to the standards that are acceptable. You have to do compliance audits, and you always want to be doing continuous improvement in some way, because that's what your performance metrics are for, to actually continually monitor what's happening, so then that you can continually improve on that. So there's a governance checklist here, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but these are some of the things that will be quite helpful when you're trying to see, is your governance framework going to be good enough, or is it ready? So some of the things like, do you have an AI strategy document approved by the executive leadership? Do you have the AI ethics committee established? Acceptable use policy? Have you done a risk assessment? Roles and responsibilities? Have you done a vendor evaluation criteria? Is that established? Are there training requirements defined? Incident report and escalation procedures? AI inventory and maintained and updated? A register of all of the AI tools that your company is using? And regular governance review schedule established. So these are some of the things that you're going to need to start thinking about if you want to have a proper AI governance framework in place. So putting the framework in place isn't really going to be enough. Normally what we see is that you can put all of the rules and regulations that you want in place, but you need to develop a culture that will embrace this change. So the first thing that you want to really think about is starting to educate your staff on these AI tools. So there's loads of free courses out there, including this one, where you can start to understand the AI basics, the benefits of using these tools and the limitations. Now, it depends on the size of your organization. This is going to vary according to different organizations, but there is in the EU AI Act, there is an article there that there's a requirement that all of your staff have to have AI literacy, so they have to at least understand the basics. Allowing a safe environment for testing and learning, this is key. So allowing your staff to experiment and allowing them to fail in a safe way. This failure is often, part of an innovation. So if you allow them to fail safely, then they will normally, be able to build something really innovative. So allowing experimentation in a safe environment is definitely key. Promoting collaboration and encouraging collaboration, across multifunctional teams and across different functional teams. Even better is to have an AI champion in each of your departments, and that's somebody that's going to really encourage AI adoption and kind of help the staff and your employees to embrace this change. Whenever they see some of their colleagues that are using these things and how productive that they have become, then it starts to become even better for adoption. You need clear accountability, and ethical use is everyone's responsibility. So again, this comes back to the staff understanding the AI basics. Normally you will be able to enforce responsibility whenever you educate your staff properly. But as long as there's clear accountability and the tools are being used, according to your acceptable uses policy and according to your strategy and everything, then that's basically as long as there's clear accountability. Transparency is another big one. We have to be very transparent about using these tools, the capabilities and the limitations of them. So, there are times when we'll not be able to use these because of limitations, or the times they're going to be used more because of some of the capabilities that they have. But at the end of the day, we need to be transparent when we're not using these AI tools. And then the willingness to change processes is a big one. Continuous learning kind of mindset, to have a continuous improvement mindset as well. That's definitely something that is needed for employees to start embracing the adoption of this new technology. So what if you're changing? What do you need to know about then? So there's a couple of things. Awareness, that's the first thing. So we need to communicate the vision. We need to share success stories and address concerns openly. So success stories will normally encourage staff to embrace this stuff. Then we need to demonstrate the benefits. Again, this will help with your employees' desire to want to use these tools. So if you involve your staff in planning and if you identify champions, then they feel like they're involved and they want to be involved in embracing this technology and getting the benefits from it. Knowledge as well. You have to provide training and create resources for staff and establish support channels as well for staff that are having issues. And you want to basically make sure that your staff are more knowledgeable about these tools. You want to enable some way that they can practice safely. Experimentation is definitely encouraged, and if you can enable this practice, then you'll start to see that your employees will start to build things that are going to be really helpful. But you need things like coaches and mentors, and you need to provide access to the tools, obviously, to try them out. And then you basically just keep reinforcing this. So you celebrate wins, you measure progress, and you keep iterating and you improve. So this is the best way for us to try and change from the old way to the new way of using these tools. So as long as the employees are aware, as long as we can make them want to use these tools, as long as we can give them the knowledge to use them and the ability, and then we just keep reinforcing that, this will typically this is a good way to manage the change for this AI adoption revolution. Leadership visibility is crucial. So we see again and again when leaders actively use and champion AI, the adoption rate increases 3 times faster typically. And like I said at the start, it's really, you want to lead by example. So if you are encouraging all of these things, then you definitely will see the adoption rate increase a lot faster than companies that aren't encouraging these things.